The largest amount of projected African American job disruption from automation could be in areas with the largest African American populations, particularly in megacities such as counties that include Chicago and Washington, D.C., and in stable cities such as the counties that include Detroit and Baltimore. However, these geographic archetypes also show the disconnect between areas where African Americans are currently concentrated and areas most likely to see job growth. African Americans are underrepresented in 5 out of the 6 projected fastest growing geographical archetypes and are overrepresented in 2 of the 6 slower growing archetypes, including the one archetype that has shown negative growth. What's going on, everybody? I want to thank you all for joining me on a brand new episode of Brother Please Hear Me Out. This is season 2, episode 1. So I'm really glad and excited to bring this back. And for those of you who are new to this channel and you're not familiar with the Brother Please Hear Me Out series, this is essentially a series in which I'd like to take time out to step away from politics and focus on what's going on in the world concerning the fourth industrial revolution that's currently taking place, because I want to make sure that we as a people are not getting left behind as everything is moving forward and going digital and becoming automated and artificial intelligence is taking over everything. We don't really understand how much artificial intelligence and automation is going to completely displace Black America. So many of us are in the dark concerning this. So the purpose of this show and this series is to bring light to these things and to also not just bring light to them, but in the future, I'm going to be bringing people on to this podcast as well so that we can understand how we can get into the field of tech and just things that we can do to make sure that we are not completely displaced and distraught by artificial automation or by artificial intelligence, I should say, and automation and just the fourth industrial wave that's occurring right now. I don't want us to get lost in the shuffle. And as you can see here with this article that I'm getting ready to read called The Future of Work in Black America, this article comes from McKinsey & Company. I will leave the link in the description below so that you can read this article for yourself. It's a lengthy article. It's very detailed, a lot of graphs, a lot of statistics and data. I suggest everybody read this article because I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm going to jump around. But when you read this article and you go through it, you see, just like with any and everything else that's going on with Black America concerning politics, concerning racial wealth gap, you name it, we're on a downward hill spiral. And I want to do the best that I can to give you the necessary information to try to curve that. So let's get into this article right now. Like I said, this article is called The Future of Work in Black America from McKinsey & Company. The link will be in the description below, and we're going to jump right into it. Research shows that automation trends may be widening the racial wealth gap. This article reveals possible interventions that may help African American workers prepare for the future. The racial wealth gap threatens to grow as norms, standards, and opportunities in the current U.S. workplace change and exacerbate existing income disparities. One critical disruptor will be the adoption of automation and other digital technologies by companies worldwide. According to the estimates from the McKinsey Global Institute, companies have already invested between $20 billion and $30 billion in artificial intelligence technologies and applications. End users, businesses, and economies are hoping to significantly increase their productivity and capacity for innovation through using such technologies. Now, what you have to understand before I continue reading is that this article that I'm referencing was written, if I'm not mistaken, in 2019. And I'm checking it right now. Yes, this was October 4th, 2019, that this article was written. This is pre-health crisis, okay? And we all know what I mean when I say health crisis. This is pre-health crisis. The reason that that's important for me to highlight is because since then, you have to multiply these numbers by 5. That's just my opinion, okay? That's not a fact, but you have to multiply these numbers by 5. They're not investing between 20 billion and 30 billion anymore in artificial intelligence. They're investing far more than that. Because when you look at how much the landscape has changed so much in that 2 years. People are working from home now. People are doing school from home now. People are doing doctor visits from home now. They're doing doctor's appointments on their phone. Okay, not even talking to doctors, just hitting a few buttons and going through an app. Everything is digital now. Everything is done through machine learning technology. Everything is done by AI. Everything is going automated. Businesses are opening now, or they have been open for quite some time now, but some of you, if you've been paying attention to what's going on out here, a lot of businesses are hiring, but nobody wants to go back to work because a lot of people are simply scared to go back to work because they don't want to get the you know what, right? They don't want to catch it. They're scared. Even though they've taken their quote vitamins, right? And they've got both doses of their quote vitamins, people are still scared. So with that being said, businesses are now being forced, even though they were already moving in this direction, they're being forced to adopt artificial intelligence at an even quicker pace than they would have been doing had the health crisis not been going on. Okay, so that's why I really wanted to highlight that very quickly. Now let's get back into this article, all right? Because not to just beat a dead horse, these things with artificial intelligence and automation are really ramping up, and it's ramping up quick. So let's keep going. As determined in our previous report on the racial wealth gap, African Americans start from a deprived position in the workforce, with an unemployment rate twice that of white workers, a pattern that persists even when controlling for education, duration of unemployment, and the causes of unemployment. Our prior research also shows that African Americans could experience the disruptive forces of automation from a distinctly disadvantaged position, particularly because they are often overrepresented in the support roles that are most likely to be affected by automation, such as truck drivers, food service workers, and office clerks. This article builds on these findings using a new and proprietary data set compiled by MGI to construct a 2030 scenario that projects the impact of automation in the national workplace and specific U.S. counties. We reviewed this demographic and employment data in 13 distinct community archetypes across the country to test our previous findings and discover if African Americans are overrepresented in both at-risk roles and within U.S. regions that are most likely to see job declines because of automation. We project that African Americans in the 13 community archetypes we analyze may have a higher rate of job displacement than workers in other segments of the U.S. population due to the rising automation and gaining a smaller share of the net projected job growth between 2017 and 2030. By 2030, the employment outlook for African Americans, particularly men, younger workers, 18 to 35, and those without a college degree may worsen dramatically. Additionally, we find that African Americans are geographically removed from future job growth centers and more likely to be concentrated in areas of job decline. These trends, if not addressed, could have a significant negative effect on the income generation, wealth, and stability of African American families. The challenges are daunting, but our research reveals opportunities and improvement within the African American workforce through strengthening local economies, shifting education profiles to align with growing sectors, engaging companies and public policymakers to develop re-skilling programs, and redirecting resources to ease the transition as automation changes the landscape for African American workers. In this article, we share our findings and note some potential interventions, some of which have already begun. Now, what I want you to focus on, and what I hope you're kind of hearing within that last paragraph, is what I've been saying for quite some time now when I discuss politics. And that is, you have to take local politics serious. Everything that they're speaking of in this last paragraph has to do with what's happening locally for you. This isn't going to get addressed on any real national level, in my personal opinion, all right? Because on a national level, we have people talking about like Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton and all these kind of people. They're talking to you about voting rights and police reform. Meanwhile, artificial intelligence and automation is going to do the most damage to the black community. more so than voting rights and more so than criminal justice reform. Artificial intelligence is getting ready to completely knock us out the frame. So if this is going to be addressed in any real serious manner, it's going to have to be done locally through local politics to get the resources that you need in your local Black community, your local Black neighborhoods all across the country. So I'm very big on local politics. That's where the focus has to be concerning these changes, because what's happening right now concerning the downward hill spiral that the African American community is headed in, this is not going to self-correct. Either through local politics, you're going to be able to get the resources you need to change things around, or at the very least, the fact that you as an individual are paying attention to what I'm reading to you right now and taking it serious, at the very least, you can save yourself. Now let's carry on. As shown in prior research, African Americans are overrepresented in occupations likely to be most affected by automation, and this remains accurate for our 2030 projection. In addition, African Americans are underrepresented in the occupational categories that are most resistant to automation-based displacement. African Americans are overrepresented in office support, food service, and production work industries. These industries are most vulnerable to a net loss in jobs, whereas African Americans are underrepresented in professions such as education, health, business, and legal, in which there could be a net gain in jobs. And after that paragraph, if you read this article for yourself, it's going to show some data for you where you see, and it highlights the fact that, like I just read, we are overrepresented as a people in all of the fields that are getting ready to get wiped out by automation, such as office support, food service, and production work. But in the fields that will get touched marginally, not too much, but marginally, those fields like education and health professionals and business and legal professionals and property maintenance and agriculture professions, those places where we are underrepresented will be affected marginally. And we're not in those sectors. Now let's carry on. Our research also shows that African Americans tend to hold occupations at the lower end of the pay scale. Only half of the top 10 occupations that African Americans typically hold pay above the federal poverty guidelines for a family of four, $25,750. And all 10 of those occupations fall below the median salary for a U.S. worker, $52,000. Many of these occupations are among the top 10-15 occupations at risk of automation-based displacement and are also projected to affect young African American workers without a college degree. Now, if you read this article for yourself, all the information that I just gave you right now, they break it down with the statistics and the graphs and everything of that nature so that it highlights the fact that not only are we overrepresented in the fields that are going to be the most affected by automation, but we're also overrepresented in the fields that pay the least amount of money. And in those same fields that pay the least amount of money, those are the fields that are also going to get wiped out by artificial intelligence and automation. This is an extremely serious problem that I really hope that we're all taking heed to. Now let me carry on. Our 2030 scenario also indicates that African Americans could capture a smaller share of new job growth in the economy compared with white and Asian populations based on the current job growth outlook for these groups. There is also a possibility that higher growth occupations that currently have high representation of African Americans may become more attractive to workers of other races, further reducing the already small share of new jobs available to African Americans by 2030. The largest amount of projected African American job disruption from automation could be in areas with the largest African American populations, particularly in megacities such as counties that include Chicago and Washington, D.C., and in stable cities such as the counties that include Detroit and Baltimore. However, these geographic archetypes also show the disconnect between areas where African Americans are currently concentrated and areas most likely to see job growth. African Americans are underrepresented in 5 out of the 6 projected fastest growing geographical archetypes and are overrepresented in 2 of the 6 slower growing archetypes, including the one archetype that has shown negative growth, distressed Americana. Distressed Americana showed negative net job growth from 2007 to 2017 and is projected to show negative job growth through 2030. African Americans in these distressed areas may disproportionately feel the negative effects of impending economic and technological changes, see fewer new opportunities, and face additional changes in transitioning to the economy of the future. So after reading that paragraph, they show some statistics at the bottom that's very interesting in terms of where the most job growth is going to be moving forward in the future. And a lot of us are going to have to start making hard decisions concerning leaving where you currently are. A lot of you brothers and sisters that are living in high concentrated Black population areas, in order to be able to keep up with how things are moving, you might have to move to Sarasota, Florida. You might have to move to Bend, Oregon. You might have to move to South Bend, Indiana. You might have to move to Seattle. You might have to move to these places where Black folks really aren't there. You're going to have to make a decision. Do I want to stay where I'm at now, or do I want to go to where the opportunity is? But that's on you. You got to make those hard decisions for yourself. But this is what's happening out here right now, okay? So with all that being said, let me carry on, and we're going to wrap this up very soon. Because like I said, I'm not going to read this whole article to you. I only got a couple more paragraphs to read. So let's carry on. Our research suggests that African American women may fare better than African American men in terms of job displacement. In fact, African American women are projected to have a lower displacement rate than the total displacement rate of the white and Asian American workforce, while African American men have one of the highest displacement rates at 24.8%. African American men are underrepresented in the top 15 occupations for men based on the 2017-2030 net job growth. That includes software developers and general and operations managers. Additionally, African American men are overrepresented in the bottom 15 occupations based on the 2017-2030 net job growth. That includes industrial truck operators and stock clerks. Now, this next segment here is called Preparing for the Future, and this is where I'm going to close it out with about 2 more paragraphs, so let's get into that right now, okay? There are many challenges, as the numbers show, but opportunities for African American workers and public and private sector institutions to limit the adverse effects of automation remain. Our research and experience in the field point out 2 sets of solutions that can help alleviate the challenges compounded by economic intersectionality. The first set of solutions targets geographics, that is, improving economic conditions in regions in which African Americans are currently concentrated, or enabling African American worker mobility. The second set targets capabilities, that is, improving skill development and education levels in the African American community to create additional pathways to better occupations that could be at lower risk of disruption by automation. Now, you see what they're saying right there in that last sentence concerning improving skill development. This is really what this whole show is about. It's about making sure to put this information out there so that you can improve your skill development. It's time to develop and build upon our 4th industrial skills in order to be able to compete in the job market of the future, which is already happening right now, as well as be able to develop relevant 4th industrial businesses. Now, you can start you a little t-shirt business or open you up a barbershop if you want to, or you can learn the necessary skills in order for you to be able to compete in the new 4th industrial society. The choice is yours. When I put these videos out, people tend to give me pushback saying, oh, you're trying to tell us to get jobs, and these jobs are already being taken up by H-1B visas, I believe they're called, and immigrants are coming in and they're taking up these jobs. They're bringing in people from India and China to work these jobs. I'm going to be blunt with you, man. You're going to have to get over that, brother. You're going to have to get over that, sister, because as the saying goes, you could bring a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. All I'm doing right now is giving you the water. If you want to reject the water because you're worried about H-1B visas and immigrants and all this kind of stuff, so now you don't even want to try, hey, that's on you. But the one thing that I want to make sure I do with this channel is that you can never, ever, ever say, nobody told me. That's not true. You were warned. I brought you to the water, and you made the choice not to drink. You made the choice to make it a point to ignore what I'm saying. Now, I'm not saying that I know it all and I'm so smart, but all I know is that the numbers and the data doesn't lie. Everything that I'm going off of and that I talk about on this channel, whether it's politics or whether we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution, it's all based on data. It's all based on statistics. And the numbers show, the stats say that Black America is about to perish. Black America is going under and you will not recover. That's what the data is saying. So you can ignore it if you want, or you can accept it for what it is and make the necessary shifts and changes to make sure that you don't get left behind. But understand and remember, the choice is yours. You're making the choice either to take heed to this information or to ignore it. But understand, you made that choice. Now let's carry on with this last paragraph, and then we're going to go ahead and shut this down. A two-pronged strategy emerges when focusing on the top 10 counties in which 2030 job growth is projected to be the lowest for African Americans. First, there are areas of the United States, primarily in the stable cities archetype, in which African Americans are expected to bear a disproportionate burden of job losses compared with other racial groups in the workforce. In Baltimore City, a county projected to see negative net job growth, white employees are projected to see positive net job growth by 2030, whereas African American jobs could sharply decline and account for more than 150% of the projected job losses in that area. In fact, there are more than 200 counties, largely concentrated in the U.S. Southeast and Midwest, where a decline in African American net job growth could occur alongside an increase in job growth for white employees. In these locations, social sector and membership organizations like the National Urban League and the National Association of the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, may be engaged to increase advocacy and ensure that African Americans share in the same potential gains from automation that may benefit other populations. So brothers and sisters, I'm going to wrap it up with that right there. Like I said, this is a very long and detailed article. I have not been reading it all the way through. I've been jumping around, and I highly suggest that you please read this article for yourself. Please do so and get informed on what's happening out here with the way in which the country and this world is moving. Like I said, the link will be in the description below. This article is called The Future of Work in Black America, and it comes from McKinsey & Company. Like I've said in previous videos in the past, and I'm going to say it again to end this video off, by the end of this decade, by 2030, the world will have drastically shifted from what it was in 2020 and 2021. Whether that change is for better or worse depends on you and not somebody else. Please take heed to what I'm saying. It truly depends on you and not somebody else, because you have the information right in front of you. All the data is there. Are you going to act on it or aren't you? The choice is yours. So with all that being said, that does it for today's video. Please make sure you hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. All social media links will be pinned in the comment section below. Please make sure you text tdhiphop to number 33222. That's tdhiphop to number 33222. That will get a direct text notification whenever I release a new video, but it also serves as a protection plan for myself in case YouTube ever gives this channel the axe. I'll be able to send you a direct link to where you can find me next. And for all of you who have a love and appreciation for the work that I put in on this channel, the number one way you can show your support is through Patreon for only $3 a month. That will help put me in position to be able to take TD Hip Hop Media off of YouTube. Remember, the goal is not to grow big on YouTube, but to grow independent of YouTube. And if you haven't already, please make sure you join the emailing list. There is no way that I can go independent of YouTube if I cannot take the audience with me. The link for the emailing list will be in the description and pinned in the comment section below, as well as everything else will be. Thank you for your time, and until the next video, peace.